Hello and welcome to our fifth week of The Happy Writer as part of the Holding It Together Apart autumn series. It's great to have you along. It's a bright morning here in Dublin this morning, and I actually went for a very slow jog, and amazing to see that the trees, so little of the leaves left. We really are heading into the deep of winter. I hope that this week finds you well and safe, and I look forward to spending the next 15-20 minutes with you. So as always, we begin by sharing the screen. So this week, and we're on week 5 now, hard to believe, this week we're going to focus on steady as you flow. So last week we chatted about resilience, and this week we're going to chat a bit about motivation and how to kind of find our flow and keep things flowing. And we'll be looking back at some of the things that we spoke about in earlier episodes as well. This is our penultimate session in this autumn series, and so looking forward to getting stuck in. So just to remind us what flow is as it's described as a state of deep productivity and creativity. And that comes as there's a fantastic book on flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Fantastic, really recommend it to you. And it just invites us to realize that we can enter into the state of flow at many different times in our lives, but certainly writing is one way of doing that. So just to chat briefly about what are the conditions for flow. And in order for us to be in flow, we are typically doing something that we have spent quite a lot of time already practicing on. So practice is one of the first conditions of flow. A second condition is that the activity is enjoyable for us, so that it's something that brings us great pleasure. So at the moment we're chatting about it in the context of creative writing, but it could also be in the wider sense of anything that brings us that kind of pleasure. It could be gardening, it could be baking, it could be problem solving in a work context, but just that the activity for us is intrinsically enjoyable. And the third one here, and this is particularly relevant when it comes to a skill like writing, skill and challenge are matched. So we're always looking, when we're looking to enter into a state of flow, is that our skill level and the challenge are close, but the challenge is always a little bit ahead of us, so that we have to stretch ourselves. So that there's that element of having to kind of move beyond where we are and move into a slightly kind of more a slightly higher challenge, and then when we get there, that and the skill is matched, then we're moving again, and that's how we continue in flow. That intrinsic motivation, which is the next one, it's where the motivation comes from the activity itself rather than there being an external motivation. So in the case of writing, for most of us as writers, there is a pleasure in the actual writing itself. There's a motivation within the writing that has nothing to do with whether the work's going to be published or whether anybody else is going to read it. And then the last one is that there's meaning for us, so that we ascribe a meaning to the activity. So I know that in my case, and I'm a poet, for many people the idea of poetry would be, just it wouldn't float their boat. But for those of us who love poetry and write poetry, there's huge meaning and purpose for us in expressing ourselves in that way. So just practice, activity is enjoyable, skill and challenge matched, intrinsic motivation and meaning for us. And what is the payoff? The outside world falls away, self-consciousness disappears, sense of mastery, ego and inner critic is silenced, sense of oneness, total focus on the task, and satisfaction and joy. So all of those things are some are part of what we experience when we have that lovely sense of flow. So there's huge reward for us. And I think particularly during lockdown, and now we're still in level 5 in the restriction, there's so little that we can do, but to know that we can enter into this state of flow, even doing something around the house. At the moment, I'm having a great fun. I'm doing a 3D jigsaw puzzle of Hogwarts Castle, and I have to laugh because on the packaging it says, you know, for age 8 and upwards, but the actual just doing things with my hands and seeing something build is bringing me huge satisfaction, and I'm getting a great sense of flow from it. And, you know, talk about meaning, it only has meaning for me because I'm having a laugh doing it. But there's just an example of where we can be in flow, even if it's for other people, it doesn't make any sense. So just to come back to, I suppose, this thing of practice, you know, and we can't become better writers unless we are writing regularly. And in one of our early episodes, we talked about how to set up a writing schedule and how to set up the writing. But we do need to be writing regularly, and improving our craft in order to move into that state of flow. So practice, and then practice and practice. And it's not like back in school where it felt like, oh, it's like homework. It's not like that at all. But it is about making sure that we're giving time in our diaries, giving ourselves over time and space to write. So this piece around, you know, we really want to write, and it's something that is important to us, but sometimes we struggle to write. And I was running a workshop there the other night, and one of the participants was saying that, you know, when he gets stuck in his writing, all of his self-doubts come back, and kind of the questions, that inner critic that we spoke about already, just, you know, that voice that's kind of saying, oh, you know, don't do it, you're not, you know, the writing isn't good enough, you've got nothing to say, or that voice. So just acknowledging that sometimes it is difficult to keep motivated, and even acknowledging that, never mind just the writing part of it, you know, that it's even sometimes seasonal, isn't it? You know, at the moment we're in November, it's very dark, at times the weather isn't great, we have the whole COVID experience around us, and it can be hard to keep motivated. And again, just kind of chatting, and myself even personally, but chatting to people are struggling with their energy at the moment. So how do we keep ourselves motivated, even if it's something that we really do enjoy doing? How do we do that? So one of the ways is just don't wait for inspiration to find you, to go and look for it. So sometimes as writers, we can kind of sit passively and kind of almost waiting for something to hit us. And the advice the world over is rather than sitting waiting for something to hit us, to go actively and to seek it. So in the earlier in our spring series, we did work around writing prompts and etc. So, you know, where we might find our inspiration. So that could be an idea to pop back and look at some of those if you're stuck at the moment. But it's also about, and the next one we'll talk about it, is that it's about following your curiosity. And that quote comes from Elizabeth Gilbert from her book Big Magic, which is all about creativity and kind of how to sustain it. So just asking yourself the question, you know, what is interesting you at the moment? What are you curious about? What is, yeah, kind of what's on your mind? And I'm not saying what's in your mind in terms of kind of maybe what's worrying, but just what's on your mind, and that is saying, oh, that's interesting, or that's, yeah, you know, I was chatting to somebody recently, and they had been up in the Arctic Circle, which is the most amazing thing, and they were talking about, and this was really kind of it was something that was keeping them curious at the moment, was just, you know, about this particular type of fungus that will keep embers alight, so you can move a fire from place to place, and that was something that really just tickled their fancy. And so that was something that just, this idea of following your curiosity. So just asking yourself the question, yeah, what at the moment is keeping you curious, you know, and it might be the season that's coming, or whatever it is that might be piquing your interest at the moment. So following your curiosity and maybe writing about that. Aim low. This was great advice that was given to me during a workshop, and the Lanny who was running the workshop, I said, oh, that's great, you know, can I quote you on that? And she was laughing and said, I got it from somebody else, so I'm passing it on here. Aim low, so that not putting ourselves under pressure to write well, or not putting ourselves under pressure to feel like we have to be making great progress. Just if we are feeling stuck and we're looking to be motivated, just sometimes saying to ourselves, just for this morning, I'm not going to worry about the quality of the writing. I'm just going to kind of aim low and just write and just see what comes out and not be worried about the quality of it. So that aim low can be very useful. So just some tips to keep yourself motivated. If you have a big writing goal, for example, if it could be I want to write a short story, or it might even be I want to write a novel, or a screenplay. So it could be something that's quite long. So one of the ways to help us keep motivated is to break down our writing goal into small chunks or steps. So asking ourselves what feels possible today, and then go and do that. So it might be that you know, I'm on chapter 4 of a book, and I'm really, you know, I'm kind of really struggling. So just asking yourself what might feel possible, and it might be actually like, well, maybe I'll go back and reread chapter 3 and see kind of where to go from there. Then we go and do that. Or what might feel possible today is actually I'm not ready for chapter 4, but you know, I have a good idea what might happen at the end. So I might take that small step and go do that. So just breaking it down into smaller chunks. I'll do this, and after that, I'll do this. And again, that's echoing kind of tips that I've given in earlier ones, but just it's really important to kind of remind ourselves of that, just simply going and doing it. And then when you're feeling stuck, following your curiosity, even if you don't see the link between what you want to write and where your curiosity is sending you, the link is there, but it's your future self who will make the connection. And this is something that is actually fascinating about the creative process, is that sometimes when we're stuck in a project, in a writing project, and we say, okay, I'll do what's kind of interest, you know, what I'm curious about, but we can't see the link between what we're writing and where our brain is sending us off in terms of curiosity. But it's often at a later date that we realize that they're in some way, they're in conversation with each other. And I remember when I was writing my second collection, I had this fascination with numbers, and that's something that I'm not interested in particularly at all, but I just seemed to be fascinated with when things happened and what age I was and all of that. And it was only afterwards, when I began to pull the collection together, that I realized that I could make the connection between this kind of fascination with dates and the fact that it was important for me to put these markers in the sand to when I was exploring a particular part of my life. So there's just an example of just trusting your instinct about where your curiosity is sending you, because it's likely to fold back into what it is that you wanted to write in the first place. Or it could send you off somewhere else, but it's always going to help to spark things. Or just when you're stuck on where to go next, ask yourself, what am I certain about? And write down all the things that you're certain of, and that can get us moving again. So if we kind of hit a roadblock and we're stuck with our motivation and we're like, I just don't know where to go from here, asking ourselves the question, well, what am I certain about? What is it that I do know for definite about the writing or the character or the plot or the scene? And often even just writing that down can really help to get us moving again. And then plot or record your progress as you see it. So whether that's in a notebook, whether it's using, you know, there's a free apps, for example, the one I use is called Toggle, but just so that your brain can see it, and whether it could even just be writing things down on a list and ticking them off. But the brain loves to be able to see the progress that's being made, and that can really help to keep us motivated to take the next step. And Dr. Seuss, and will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed. And this is taken from a wonderful book called All the Places You Will Go by Dr. Seuss. And it really is all a book around motivation and resilience and keeping going. It's a great book for adults and children alike. that seems to be a theme this week between Harry's Hogwarts Castle and Dr. Seuss. So this week, the poem I took, there's a wonderful podcast called Poetry Unbound, and it's on Spotify, and it's on, you can check it out on the website, and obviously it's all free, and it's curated by a beautiful poet called Pádraig Ó Tuama. I hope I've got his name correct. And each of the episodes is only maybe 10-15 minutes long, even, or maybe only 10 minutes long, and he chooses a poem and explores it. It's really lovely. Poetry Unbound, it's called. And this was a poem that I'd listened to during the week out on one of my walks, and it really, I think particularly for this time when many of us are continuing to feel great stress and anxiety, this is a really powerful poem. A Portable Paradise by Roger Robinson. And if I speak of paradise, then I'm speaking of my grandmother, who told me to carry it always on my person, concealed, so no one else would know but me. That way you can't steal it, she'd say. And if life puts you under pressure, trace its ridges in your pocket, smell its piney scent on your handkerchief, hum its anthem under your breath. And if your stresses are sustained and daily, get yourself to an empty room, be it hotel, hostel, or hovel. Find a lamp and empty your paradise onto a desk, your white sands, green hills, and fresh fish. Shine the lamp on it like the fresh hope of morning, and keep staring at it till you sleep. So just remembering this week that spending time writing, even if no one ever sees our work, is of huge value to us. Writing gives us the space to express ourselves creatively and helps us to make sense of what's happening to and around us. So it really is such a valuable thing to do. So even if we're not looking to have work published or shared, the actual act of writing is really, really, really good. And a great quote from Joan Didion: I don't know what I think until I write it down. So there is something about the process of writing really helps us to clarify what we're thinking and to express what we're feeling, which is really, really powerful. So yeah, just kind of finishing off this week, just acknowledging that we're beginning to slip into the next season. Not quite there yet, but the trees certainly are letting us know that the season is moving on. But just acknowledging too the great beauty that is in this time of the year, and maybe letting that be one of the ways in which we can continue to stay motivated and focused on what's important to us. So thanks a million, as always, for sharing this space, and I look forward to seeing you back here, hopefully next week. Thank you very much.